Good morning. It's the Sabbath, and that's Mozart's Requiem. I'm going to end it all really soon. And for those of you who are educationally subnormal, I'm going to explain how the Speculative Society in Edinburgh creates globalism. I've now coloured it in for the bimbos that spend their whole of their Saturday watching the rugby on the telly. Yeah, and I'm starting with Prime Minister Cameron. We've seen that story. That's the Scottish financial enterprise mafias and Sir Ewan Brown. There's all his crashed banks from 2008, and he got his knighthood last year when we reported his crimes in the crashing of the bank. There's all the companies. You should see what Prime Minister Cameron's family does in the Edinburgh region. There's Ali Moffat and Butcher Haig, the bosses at the Queen's Babies Educational Institute, St Andrews University, and there's the links to the Scottish judiciary that mean that everybody gets stolen from, even when they build the new Parliament building. Kev Drummond and Davy Steele. Yeah, really proud at asset stripping the British Treasury and the closure of all the law courts that the British students will not be able to work in because of this generation's crimes. Alistair Moffat, St Andrews rector, and I've got a picture of the BBC studio in Selkirk where all of Kev Drummond's crimes are totally condoned by all of the media men, because he makes millions out of telling lies in Scotland, in the media, on the telly and in the papers, and his mate Jim Naughtie has disappeared for reputational reasons. Right then. So we're down to the B's. That includes the Balfours, but I prefer to dub on them story by story. They're in all of them. Okay, and that includes the Ronnie Balfour Corbetts with links to Chip and Norton. Okay, there's Ewan Brown's entry. Sir Ewan Brown, the Queen's friend, since I revealed him as a criminal. There's the criminal connections to the Bruce family lineage. Do you remember them? The heart is buried in the Abbey right next door to the Freemasonic hub where they sacked me on the river. Lord Sanderson of Bowden. Mayor Bruce's. Okay, there's the Burns connection. This takes you right into Kelso School. The Burns Club member who used to play rugby for Kelso, round about the time when they were capable of winning the championship, became the headmaster at the school, and the motto on the school jersey is "Do or Die." What he's done is stuffed up his country, and then he replaces it with a school teacher from the Lothian coast because of the need to cover that up, and she has no teaching experience on her transcript, and she gets horribly sick for long periods of time, but eventually she sees the light and she begins to walk around the supermarket looking really sheepish about what she's done to Scottish education. But as a consequence of that, she gives them the Friday off to cover the crimes and to make her look popular. Archbishop O'Brien, from exactly the same region on the Lothian coast as Andrew Lothian the rapist, and the headmistress at Kelso High School, was on the front page of the papers yesterday, since I began to point out that nothing in Scottish law enforcement has touched him. Okay, he's on the front page of the paper. Still, nothing in Scottish law courts have touched him or any of the corrupted papacy that do it entirely for cash. That's Lord Burns, Senator of the College of, it's too big to, and works for Levy and McRae, like Miss Salmond. Right then, this is what has shocked me somewhat overnight, and I'm making a video before I go to church just in case I get taken down like Norman Kirk, the New Zealand Prime Minister, who protested about nuclear testing off his shore, and then he became the Star Trek joke. Yeah, killed by the people that run the nuclear testing, which was allegedly the French. My links to John Alistair Cameron, Lord Abernethy, another law lord, yeah, and possibly the Prime Minister. Secret Society number 1776 on the Speculative Society listing. You will be appalled by what he does. There's the links already declared to Rupert Murdoch. There is Cameron, the Prime Minister. Yeah, you know all about the identity fraud on the business register. This could be our august Prime Minister. That's Rebecca Brooks, the criminal. That is Rupert Murdoch, the murderous, treasonous leader of the media globally now, put in there by the Nugent Hand Bank out of Australia, entirely condoned, like the killing of Norman Kirk, the innocent in New Zealand, by Gough Whitlam and President Ford in the USA. He's in the CIA, which is why he gets to become an American citizen as soon as he has dismembered the British Free Press. This connection takes you into the right to the top of the cabal. That's Lagarde, IMF, BNP Paribas, the Mellon Bank, and the elite. That should read boat race. Cambridge and Oxford are at all of the criminal hubs, and everything is proclaimed on Time magazine if you can afford to buy it. This is the links of the Mellon Bank to the corporatisation project. Mellon was a fisherman. He had a lake with a dam at the end, and when they took the American citizens' gold and put it in Fort Knox, there was a massive act of God, and many thousands of people died in that region. That's the Mellon Bank, linked to the Camerons with the white feather in Lochiel, 4 registered in the secretive organisation which is the Speculative Society in Edinburgh, run by the university, with strong links to the Rothschilds, who are the commanders-in-chief for all of this through all of human history since the central bank fell in the Battle of Waterloo, which is commemorated by the naming of the New Zealand capital city, Wellington. Isn't that funny? Norman Kirk, the only martyr for decency, long forgotten, and now Captain Kirk. And you might remember that Mr. Spock died last week. That's the beam me up to fucking heaven joke that they laugh at all of the time. Okay? John Mainwaring Robertson, Dresden Kleinwerk, Hitler's Bank. Okay? Right then, here's a list of the companies that are run by John Alistair Nigel Cameron. Cato's and thousands of laundering shells. The joke about the Prime Minister brother and people who he's defending not being able to get legal aid is now explained as a shallow cover for these crimes. Okay, let me just read off the list of directorates that this one Cameron is on. There are 4 of them on the Speculative Society listing. These are all the crashed banks that Ewan Brown got his knighthood for. Now the boss at St Andrews University, Finance Inc., Murray Extra Return Investment Trust plc, RBS M Investments Limited, Royal Bank Scotland M Investments Limited. Can you remember my secret investigators contact who got me the sack the day I was trying to save Syria from carpet bombing? Yeah, RBS, the name M is the name of the man from the Frome region that makes the platforms and the devices that allow you to trade nuclear weapons across the world, which is what Norman Kirk died for, quietly in the back room. The RBS Mezzanine Limited, the mezzanine building in London, issues visas and passports and gives you the right to work in New Zealand as part of the Crown Templar Inc. limited liability all the way to their banks. RBEF Limited, RBSM Capital Limited, you must not mention M because he's from the West Country where they had the Somerset floods, and he drinks with the Bredenkamps in the pub, and he rings me up on the Sunday morning when I get the sack by the Lord on the River Tweed, who's allowed to create the fish quotas for the EU and keep everybody riled up about how inefficient Europe is. And Mrs. Thatcher is his greatest friend and the world's greatest woman still. The National Insurance and Guarantee Corporation Limited, Dresdner, Hitler's Bank, Kleinwerk Metals Limited, Amarindo Trading Limited, Amarindo Internet Fund PLC. That's why all Cameron's assistants go to Google or go to the Wikipedia empire so that they can at 3 AM in the morning cover up everything that I report about what they do to the world's innocents. Amarindo Internet Fund PLC, KB Fund 3, GP Limited, that could be part of the healthcare frauds, but that is speculation. The next bit is fact. Royal Bank Investments Limited, Elco Leasing Limited, BNY Mellon Holdings UK Limited. That's on both of the boats in the Cambridge-Oxford elite competition that none of the poor people are allowed to enter because Durham win the national competition every year. But they also have sacked their Vice-Chancellor for being a pharma magnate. That's Christopher Higgins, who's interviewed me a couple of times, and I'm not up to the job of being a boss in the university sector because they want to continue with the theft and impoverishment of every global student. The Bank of New York Mellon International Limited appointment resigned since 2000. Number of employees 1,244 in 2011, 946 in 2013, and when I got into my divorce case in 2014, we have no statistics. Commerce Bank with the German spelling, UK Limited, UK Insurance Limited, Direct Line Group Limited, Plant Merge Limited, Direct Line Insurance Limited, Churchill Insurance Company Limited. That's the Churchill that committed genocide in both world wars and ran the Navy provisions and profiteering efforts out of the War Office, strictly secret, with free cigars from British American Tobacco. And Beaverbrook oils every one of those scams and writes it up in the papers, and Lord Haw Haw goes to Germany and does the same thing. He's the last person to be executed in Britain for treason, and launches Eric Joyce into Falkirk. Indemnity Insurance Limited, the Royal Bank of Scotland, Public Limited Company, the Royal Bank of Scotland Group, Public Limited Company, National Westminster Bank, Public Limited Company, Lombard North Central Public Limited Company. One director on the Speculative Society in Edinburgh. One of his company listings, Commerce Bank Finance Limited, Murray Split Capital, and I've emboldened the word trust, and it has got a dozen or so, like the 12 tribes, exclamation marks behind it, and then the initials PLC. Then you've got a picture of Lord Mackay of Clashfern and all of the covers in popular culture by the Chipping Norton set. This is my brother-in-law's inspirational hero, full member of the Chipping Norton set, and his wife is still on it. She's a baroness or some such. There's Mackay, the cover-up for the real Mackay, who lives right next door to Gordon Brown's radioactive beach. There is a picture of Moira Anderson. There is a picture of the Dunblane cover-up for all of the financial crimes of our august Prime Ministers and the other 3 family members who have not yet looked into. This is Lord Abernethy, the law lord in Scotland. Do you now get the joke? He was appointed by Mrs Thatcher when Nicholas Fairbairn, the poof, had been defamed for being a poof and an activist on sexual health issues and the charities that surround that. Okay, I don't want to get into that. I want to keep to the crashed banks and how they cover it up by using Jeremy Clarkson and this little girl who's dead in a grave because a paedophilia person like these people who had already been convicted of that crime was relaunched in 2013 when Stephen House got his pay rise and Arnott Manderson were launched. Gordon Brown looks a wee bit stressed because he's the Chancellor at Edinburgh University that launched the secret society in the first place, but it's several centuries old and it has been stealing from the world ever since it was created in the underworld, and it's a very elite building that they inhabit, but they don't let women in for obvious reasons. Okay, there's Ronnie Corbett and Ronnie Barker as Moira Anderson and Kenneth McKellar. The cover are Moira and Ken. Isn't that romantic? And what they laugh about is the killing of Scottish troops in the Tyrol and the ownership of Scotland's fucking mountains. Yeah, yeah, that's why he's looking a wee bit stressed. There's the kidnapping of Michael, the Jewish angel, from the Balfour and Stevenson owned properties on the Lothian coast, where the headmistress and Archbishop O'Brien are also allowed to escape into popular culture, and then the previous headmaster comes off my contact lists because he realises that the Burns Club is being exposed as a massive geopolitical tool like it was in Dunedin. Yeah, and all of it is about the launch of globalism. Robert Louis Stevenson lived in Monterey for a while, and that's the devil's advocate joke. Read more about Alistair Nigel Campbell, directors and secretaries, and their international frauds as leaders of our country. It's no wonder that the Camerons who meet me, who are innocents in the healthcare sector in our region, will not watch a movie with me. Yeah, everybody, even because they share the family name, is drawn into corruption and is obliged to be part of the cover-up. You should have seen the number of ordinary working people that were drawn into looking for McHale in Alistair Moffat's Reporting Scotland coverage of the kidnapping of a 2-year-old boy, and that woman has now been convicted as a cover-up for all of the financial crimes in the Cameron Empire. That's just one of the 4 directors and law lords on this list. Isn't it great how you can become a hero in law enforcement and you're given your lordship and you get to sit in the second fucking chamber with Klaus Moser's directors all around you as they brutalise the free world? There's the Balfour that partitioned Palestine, and we mentioned the reparations for that. The Robeson reparations are for the creation of the Panama Canal in 1955. The Rothschilds still get a massive cash bung for that triumph for them on somebody else's continents. That's the Robeson Fund, which is why the black singer was prepared to prance around on the telly and visit Glasgow as a socialist. And what he is the launch of the John Robertson issues. Yeah, that's the John Mainwaring Robertson issues. that mean that they're able as black people to get a massive cash bun when all the rest of their friends are sent into the American forces and into their deaths in World War II, totally pre-planned by Mellon, which is why they took the citizens' gold and they put it in Fort Knox, and the Flemings make movies about it in the bond sector. Do you get it? The bond sector is the war bond sector, and there's the IMF and the linkage now to the creation of the crooked financial institutions entirely owned by the same cabal, which is why we get the false news all the time. Yeah, and she used to work at the Bank Parida, which for some reason is not on that listing, but I found it all over the transcript for the interlocks with John Alistair Nigel Cameron. That's interlocks with the Bank Paribas, which sells refugee homes to people in Syria that are funded by the Bank Paribas, and that is Miss Lagarde's IMF. That's Strauss-Kahn's IMF. He's been convicted of rape but was acquitted, or he's been charged with rape twice. He's been acquitted. He sparked an earthquake in Manhattan. There is no fault line there. It's terrible. They're allowed to get away with lying and stealing, and I don't know whether Moira Anderson was ever killed, but the folk singer Moira Anderson, since I revealed all of these horrible truths, that's her. She's undetectable now. Yeah, you cannot find her. One of my girlfriends was Thora Kerr. Her brother now works for the Royal Mail. She will not contact me because they're all friends in the same circle of Moira Anderson, the innocent folk singer, and people in my neighbourhood who've now realised all of that. They ran fish companies, fish selling companies in my hometown, and the fish is a joke, but it is not a crime to sell fish, but the cover up of all of these massive financial frauds that lead to genocides is absolutely vicious. So the C words are quite vicious, and we mentioned that there are 6 Campbells on the list. There's the picture of Trump Scotland, and there's the Ponzi shells that are listed along with Trump International Golf Club Scotland, the Glens of Foundland Wind Farm Community Trust, okay, Cohen, the Jewish high priests, Lawrence Jonathan, Fellow of Oxon, Edinburgh, Dundee, St Andrews, Princeton and Harvard. Can you see? And a Considine Hugh Mackay, the Law Lords that Mrs Thatcher appointed as her last act in government. Here's Robert Lake Crowell, schoolmaster at Fettes, where they all get educated in the police and to be Prime Minister in the UK, and also attended or was schoolmaster at Geelong Grammar School. Can you guess where that fucking is? It's in Australia, and both Rupert Murdoch and Prince Charles were educated there. Not many people know it unless you've watched the 2 videos that follow on. That is the now potentially dead Lord Patton, the Oxford Russia Fund, Prince Charles returning from Hong Kong with Lord Patton, who had his cardiovascular accident on May the 17th. Yeah, that's where David Cameron now lives. I have not got a picture of him yet. I think you're getting the picture. There's the student debt burden since these people took over in 1995 from the relatively innocent person in the student sector that was Mrs fucking Thatcher, that steals and kills all across the globe, and her son trades weapons everywhere, but none of the inquests are ever convened for reputational reasons. Same for Bonnie Prince Charlie. 70 years immunity from fraud and genocide because he trained at the same school as Rupert Murdoch, in at the end of the yellow brick road into Oz. Cullen, oh, we've done that one already. That's the Dunblane cover-up and the War Crimes Inquest Chair, and also they fudge the Skye Bridge minor crimes, which are all over Robbie the Pict's website as the only thing that they do. I'd love to talk to Robbie the Pict, but I do not believe that he will be genuine. These are just the Sheriff Lothian gangbang rape crime revelations. The Skye Bridge was a scandal, right enough, but it's nothing compared to the genocides that the Blair regime have committed, and that I now understand that Cameron is relatively innocent on the war crimes, but he's tucking away the loot in every event that they have, and Jeremy Clarkson continues loyally to take the fall for him. Let's go down to the pictures, because I've given you this. I think we stopped at the letter E before, and I'm going to church, and it's now 9:15, so let me just show you the pictures that I've added. There's Ferguson James D, which covers up all of the massive, and this is a link to Dunedin, yeah, ex-chair, St Ivory Trusts, Director Monk's Investment Trust, Common Fund Managers Association. This is where you'll find the crashing of the banks as well, out of Edinburgh and out of Dunedin. Registered in Aberdeen. Okay, and there's the Ogilvies, Arbuthnot's of Peebles, Interlocking Theeks, TSB crash and sell-off explained. There is William Frayne Bell, grinning like a Cheshire cat, because he's a lawyer and he's in the theft sector. There's his director numbers, all four of them. Have a little browse if you've got the time. Dunedin Energy Limited crashed already. In his first listing, it's Amazon, McCall. You remember the McCalls that were the first advisors to the devolved Parliament, and the building of the building with David Steele and the Flemings that collapses and had to be 10 times over budget before they stopped taking the trickle down on that one. The trams are the same, run by a German company that gets the contracts to build the schools where the headmistresses have no direct teaching experience listed on LinkedIn, and they get horrible illnesses like the head of the Borders Council, because they're in the same team and they are stealing from all of their children and all of their citizens. That's you, Tracy Lugan. I hope I might see you at church today. The conscience for you is clearly coming home to roost, and you doubled your salary as all when you were appointed by the crooked predecessors, and when you did that, the rest of your workforce had had their pay frozen for 7 years back to back. You've now started to trickle down some pay rises because you know that you're being exposed as international criminals and national traitors. There's John Frayne Bell as well, trained at Loreto School, which has a peerless reputation, like Fettes, Princeton, Harvard and all of the other epicenters for the Mafia. Energy bills, yeah, 20% rises in the energy bills every year. There's the Grangemouth suppression of the ordinary working slave who prefers to watch the rugby on the telly to think about why he's not got the right to a pay rise. As these bastards get professorships at Edinburgh University, he gets to swan off into Westminster. That's Salmond. Salmond on the Levy and McRae boards that get all the remuneration for all their false news. This is Gallan, gets €9 million a year to be the prof at Edinburgh and be part of the secret society and sell everything that Scottish Energy had in 1963 when Kennedy was killed. We've done that bit already. There's the Grossarts, the links into the St McKillops and the St Ogilvies. Yeah, and the Ogilvies are all over the transcripts that I've found involving the Camerons. Yeah, do you get it? That's the Prime Minister's family. That is the person that they talk about in £1 million frauds and the defrauding of Cairn. Yeah, They do not mention at all the links to the Rothschilds and the Lothian cover-ups that include Michael Ancram and the Jether justice system that I am now beginning to back into a really, really dangerous corner. They're complicit in war crimes and munitions profiteering. That's Jedburgh Sheriff Court and every one of the sheriffs and solicitors who have sat in judgment of me. Awareness of the plot is complicity in British law, and Scotland was unable to escape from British law because of the treason and the events that were created in Arnott Manderson's creation and all of the cover-ups for the trivial crimes of Stephen House, the head of the United Force, trained at Fettes, not to my knowledge at Geelong. In Australia, right down at the bottom of the South Pacific, Christian missions already installed, and there are no pagans left alive on this earth, which they think is really funny. And even the buffalo and the disappearance of that is laughed at in the Jehovah's Lodge. In the kiddies books that I look at every weekend, that may lose me access to the children's books. I much prefer to look at what the children are scribbling, which is why I've added the pictures here, because the adults are morons and just slaves to this system. Let me just take you to the pictures. So there's Councillor Tom Weatherston, who used to be Labour and is now strictly Conservative, so he can be elected. There's Michael Ancram that keeps the price of the beer down. There's John Major, who with Michael Ancram, the Marquis of Lothian cover, is a director both at Centrica and the Association of Conservative Clubs Limited, which makes it slightly more difficult to find. They have loads of assets, which is why they can keep the price of the beer for the ordinary working man down. But the office and the bar is tiny, which is why they have to cull the ordinary working man. That's called the anti-communist treason, and they do it after every war is fought and the ordinary working man risks his life for his country but is not allowed to have a job when he comes home. There's the links to British Gas. There's Jedburgh Sheriff Court again. There's one of Jedburgh's greatest heroes and mine. There's Gerard Depardieu, who's now as fat as that former hero of mine, and that man at the back is the thug Winterbottom, who's linked to the rugby frauds and all of the directorships through the York Freemasons. There's a picture of Rayburn at the top. I'll leave that as an enigmatic aside about the working man who defects skating on really thin ice. There's the Andrew Lothian cover and all the rape games, totally to shield the crimes of the Rothschilds at 50 Lothian Road and the Lothian 50 Ponzi shelves, with direct links to universities in Texas, to the biochemistry department at Otago University in New Zealand, and to the Lamonts, and to the Lamont that wants to make the Hebrides a tax haven. There's a Mackay, Lord Mackay of Clashfern, James Peter Heimers, which takes me up towards the Jedburgh region and a place called Ancram. There's loads of Heimers there, and they're very spirited people, and they dedicate their lives to mindless tournaments in the bowling sector. I used to admire them all. They're all bimbos and they're all slaves to this system. Right next door to where I took my wife fishing as we returned to this lovely region from London, where I was enslaved by the system for a time, but I'm smarter than the rest of them. And I always used to catch the big fish. Right then. And my best man told me 2 days ago that all of the rugby matches were being played at 3 p.m. And all of them were scattered all over the weekend for profit. My best man is a traitor to me. Yeah, and I don't give a fuck about that. His name is Brown. Yeah, his name is Brown. All of them. And his dad was shot to pieces in World War II. Yeah, badly burnt fighting for this system. It's pathetic. None of them have the wits to see it. All of them work under the Sir Walter Scott signs that proclaim, we will kill the ordinary working man at every opportunity. We will burn and rape your abbeys, and I will be the curator of those abbeys as I tuck their treasures into my trust fund, and just before I die I'll pretend that I'm in a heavy debt burden so that everything can be funded by charitable interests. Right then, pictures. I need to keep it simple for the sake of the people that watch the rugby. Scotland triumphed in the wooden spoon tournament again. Nobody's able to confirm that the Ford man from Kelso earns £200,000 to be a flop. That's 1 year's income. And the Ford family work for the Bells, who've been very, very penitent because some of their children have issues that I'm a specialist in, and since they started to communicate openly with me and I came back from New Zealand, all of those children are fit and healthy, and they've asked me if I might consider being a fishing guide and a mentor to them. I would be delighted, the Bells. Yeah, I always liked your family. I like to have you acknowledge that the bulls in the field are not at all dangerous, and it's quite safe to befriend them and to walk near them without getting something between your shoulders. The Bells are also financial advisors in my town. Those are the ones that pay the rent to the Douglas homes of the Prime Ministerial and carpet bombing and Bilderberg dynasties. Urquhart, Vinks, Wales, Fairbairn. I'll make a video about the names on the list when I've got something to pin on them. Dated lists of members who have been admitted to honorary privileges. Now wait for it. This is the killer of Princess Diana, the head of MI6, the head of the British Navy, the head of the narcotics running, and a friend of the other people that run that, like Jackie O's second partner, Onassis, in the drug running syndicates with the Duke of Edinburgh, HRH Prince Philip, patron of the Dunblane School. Yeah, one of the biggest criminals on our globe, introduced to HRH by Lord Mountbatten, who he later had murdered because Lord Mountbatten fancied a bit of the narcotics action in the South Pacific. Professor Alan Watson. Yeah, that's not Peter Watson at Levy and McRae, but I was able to discuss Peter Watson with the woman from Shelter, who's now defending innocent tenants because they go £200 into debt in the social care homes and the rental homes that the council used to own before Alice Dare Hutton became the boss, and his links to the mafias were found out again in my investigations last night, out of a tiny little village on the River Tweed, right opposite Melrose. Yeah, right opposite Melrose. There's Mackay, the Right Honourable Lord of Clashfern, on the Privy Council, which means that the mafias, even in Canada, on the Privy Council, that's Baron Black, yeah, who's been convicted of minor crimes, is still in the House of Lords and is still on the Privy Council, along with the bootleggers that eventually became the Kennedy family and the, I forget the name of the Canadian family that were legendary in the Prohibition period. It may come back to me before the end of the video. Professor Jeffrey, Professor Sir Stuart, right-wing journalist, Scotsman, Alan Massey, Right Honourable Lord Hope of Craighead, Privy Council, the very Reverend Gillies Bouygues, Macmillan. Yeah, the very reverend. That's the Church of Scotland joke, and all of their sectarian crimes through all of the history of the Lisbon Lions and David Murray's profiteering period. In Dunedin and in Glasgow, where the working man used to reside, now gets the cancer up the willy because he laughs at all these jokes. That's you, Billy Connolly, not the Billy Connolly that was my treasonous student in New Zealand, whose dad followed me all over the world and was prepared to contact me until I began to dob on him in the education ministry in Wellington, the joke about Waterloo, and he gets trips to South America to look at how we are persecuting the people down there who never get a life and are totally owned by North America and all of the plants that these people put into government, which include the revolutionary plants like the Chavezes. And the only other thing that they want to talk about is the Sky Bridge tolls. I'm taking you into massive war crimes, but I cannot understand why the pictures that I've just posted about the Mellon Bank have not come up on that. I don't want to take you to the other computer. I'm going to the church. Anyway, can you have a little look at those interlocks and the other 3 Camerons that are involved out of the city of Edinburgh and the cities of Dunedin and the city suburb called Westminster and Downing Street? Yeah, it is shameful. The treasury is empty, and I went to the rugby yesterday with this little tin box in my pocket that was sent me by my brother-in-law because he knew that he was going to desert me as an asset stripper in this country. He's in the Chipping Norton set, and he's a great friend of Ronnie in the Chipping Norton set. That's Moira and Ken in the Chipping Norton set, and the Scottish Mountains joke, and the Rule Britannia joke about where my wife now resides, right next to Alistair Hutton, the thief and the criminal, and the man with all the medals on his chest. It is an abomination. And all of them, including the leading socialists like Harold Wilson, are on the creation of the armies that now become NATO's armies and defend every crime that they commit. I'm off to church. I have no conscience at all, and I love to talk to decent people who are prepared to listen. Some of them at the church were prepared to confront the drunken priest that began to behave badly. They've got the beginnings of a Parkinsonian symptom, and I know that they have the decency to put that Parkinsonian risk down. They need to start working actively. The Jehovah's frustrate me because they are intelligent, but they're tied into this system through New York, where the Bank Mellon is a very prominent financial institution, and it was the leadership team in the American War Office when they took the citizens' gold from them before they entered World War II. And that is the Goldfinger film in the Bond jokes. Bye bye. I only now put my right knee on the ground when I go to church. Yeah, that is the Rothschild joke following the Waterloo triumph. If you watch the film about the House of Rothschilds and you see the orchids on their lapel, then understand the singing of the of the song by Renee Fleming about, you know, the gods in the skies. It is absolutely pathetic. The working man is now mindless. That is the equivalent of the orc in the Lord of the Rings movie. There is no equivalent for a character like me, because I'm prepared to do this all on my own. Thank you to the genial people in the GG sector who were able to talk to me openly yesterday, and the sun was pouring out onto the racecourse as everybody had a good time. and only the horses died of cardiovascular accidents. Yeah, I'll have a little look into why the owner of that horse may have a conscience about something later on today. At the moment, I'm intent on describing what the Prime Minister does to our world. And I know that Cameron is a physical coward, and he may be prepared to step down because his son has also been the victim of an act of God. And they all know now that if you do not become God-fearing and you do not develop constructive policies for your country and you do not give back everything you've stolen, you cannot do that with the lives of the troops and the lives of the innocents and the bystanders. But David Cameron, as I keep saying, is not a war criminal. He keeps making the decent decisions, and I got the sack that day that M was trying to take me into a conversation about nuclear weapons trading. But what happened was that Syria was saved. They were not allowed to use the Raphael RAF to bomb Syria like they had done with the other parts of the Middle East in all of the repeating stories about the ISIS myths and everything that they do to render our world perpetually chaotic. I'm going to end it. Thank you to the GG sector for your genial welcome. I did not realise that there is a disco after the event now. And the number of people that were dressed like Lily Allen in the back of the taxi, it was quite bewildering. But I'm delighted to see that the elites in the old money sector can coexist happily with the ordinary working people. It's blessedly peaceful, and it is really good that everybody has an open conversation and a really good time. I felt a bit sorry for the horse. It's an innocent bystander, but there will be human crimes behind that incident. Yeah, and one of the men got a little bit ballistic because I said I was an expert in ion channels, and the conversation very quickly stopped.